planet Earth is fairly fragile, and it's especially fragile in areas that don't receive a lot of rainfall. With rainfall, the vegetation can take care of things. Where it's fragile, whether it be the desert Southwest or the tundra in Alaska, it doesn't take much of man's misuse of the land to degrade it rather rapidly. We bought 14 acres in this area about 25 years ago, and I had hiked all over this land. No one had lived on this land for a long time, and I never intended to be a landowner. Basically, I think of myself as a land steward. So when I got the land, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with it. And then the more I learned about erosion problems and degrading of the land, the more I thought, well, I can take this piece of land and make it an educational place and a learning place, besides the fact that I'm helping the ecology of the whole area. This land has elk on it, it has deer on it, mountain lions, bobcat. It has a wide variety of vegetation, and that's kind of one of the reasons that I bought it, and I thought, well, maybe I can repair this. One main ingredient that we need for life, and that's water. And obviously the second one is oxygen. We don't have the oxygen unless we have vegetation. We don't have the vegetation unless we have the water. So conserving of water and using water properly, whether it be in your residence or whether it be on your land, I think they're both vitally important to maintain the stability of our civilization. My land actually has what's considered ephemeral riparian areas. Maybe in the past a lot of these drainages flowed all the time, but for many years now we've been in a drought situation, so it's only ephemeral, it's only part-time. And I thought, well, if I can get the vegetation in the riparian area back and make it much more back to what we think it was back in the past, because this land had been overgrazed and overfarmed and not taken care of. So through the help of the state, through the land and the soil and land conservation group here, and through the help of a federal grant, I was able to get some grants to do what I thought should be done. I think the first time that I heard about Bill's work was through the Quivira Coalition, which is a nationwide group that has been put together to try to bring what we call environmentalists and conservationists and tree huggers, to bring them together with private landowners and try to have a working relationship so they can see that we're not against all grazing, we're not against all logging, but there are scientific ways to do it and to do it properly. He came out here, it was wonderful. He spent 2 days just kind of walking around and getting a feel for the land and where structures should be built and how often the stream should meander and where we'd need to have structures that would hold back the soil. The whole thing about repairing riparian area is it's all about sediment. An awful lot of people, they understand it's important to slow the water down so it sinks down, but you can see it here when we do have water here, that not only does it sink down, but it spreads out laterally also. And so instead of having a very narrow area of good vegetation, it spreads way out. So the more you slow it down, the more it can sink down and out.
We put in structures in the creek. You can see a one rock dam below us. Soil is not compacted. The water can infiltrate, percolate into the ground, and flow on down valley here. And we see quite a mass of ice where the water's ponded. We've got some willows in there, some wild roses, some sedges, and then we get to the fence line, and on the other side of the fence the land has been overgrazed for a long period of time, and you can see the water sinks or dries out as soon as we cross the fence, and there's no shrubs and there's no riparian grasses, so it's pretty vivid demonstration of the benefits from both managing the water flow in the stream itself and how the land is managed for grazing and other uses.
And the road used to come down through here and then go down into the valley. And the first thing that Bill said when he saw that, he said, we got to put the road going up the hill so that, you know, if you keep turning uphill, then if you keep driving downhill, you'll end up with an arroyo. If you occasionally turn uphill, then the water gets a chance to drain off.
So we have just a small example. You can see the two sets of wheel tracks. One turns uphill and the water spills off. The other was closer and parallel with the creek, so the road was on the best soils around and preventing wetland vegetation from moving in. So simply by moving the road basically 30 feet upslope on its alignment, we've changed the potential for water harvesting, and we're leaving the best soil to grow vegetation instead of harbor a road.
I was surprised at the size of the rocks that we needed. And even though I'd seen flows come through here, and I've been around water a lot, I lived in Missouri around big rivers, and I know the strength of water, but to think that we would have the strength of water in an ephemeral area like this, we actually, after the first big flood that came through, rocks that probably weighed 250 pounds, moved them as much as 15 feet. And if you try to move it by yourself, you couldn't. So the strength of water is amazing. Therefore, that's why we had to have the big rocks, even though it may have seemed a bit silly putting these big rocks down the stream to hold things. It was certainly needed.
What was the total channel length that we treated, Adam? I can't remember.
The total channel length was pretty close to 3,000 feet, I believe. We built 82 rock structures, and we figure we moved about 450 cubic yards of rock to build these structures. I was fortunate with this piece of land that there were plenty of rocks on the land to use. If you have a piece of land that does not have rock, there are other things that can be used.
And what I remember about this, when we started working here about 4 years ago and doing the planning, and then 2 years ago when we built the structures, is that the bed and banks of the stream were pretty raw and scoured. There was less vegetation, specifically the kinds of vegetation that's now either that's beginning to move in and multiply, or the rushes. Behind us we have a nice patch of deer grass. We have willows in places. Those were scarce or missing over large sections of the stream bed when we first started the work.
But to see the changes over even the short time, even though we have not had the amount of rainfall that is normal in this area, to see the changes in the vegetation and the changes in the landscape over that period of time has been quite amazing and very fulfilling. What I really think that we need to learn from this, and that we all need to understand, is fixing it is not all that complicated. It will take time for it to repair itself, but we can help it along just as easily as we did the wrong thing. So doing the right thing is going to help the land, it's going to help the wildlife. The work that I've done here has to do with keeping the whole ecosystem whole. Everything from the bacteria and the algae on up to the large animals. We have migrating birds in this area. We have, indigenous species of bats in this area. And if the land is not right, we're going to lose a lot of those things. And if I can just help a couple of those species in this area survive, I'll sleep all the better. I think that we as a human race need to think about, no matter where we're at in the planet, that we have to take care of the earth or it will not take care of us.